Ukraine does not ask us to fight for her, only to arm her valiant soldiers to push Russia back inside its own borders. Ukraine's soldiers have recaptured half its stolen territory. Arm them to finish the job. For those who may naively think America can sit on the sidelines and seek isolation, please know this old adage: if you take no interest in foreign affairs, to arm her valiant soldiers to push Russia back inside its own borders. Ukraine's soldiers have recaptured half its stolen territory. Arm them to finish the job. For those who may naively think America can sit on the sidelines and seek isolation, please know this old adage: if you take no interest in foreign affairs will find you. Recall Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. 83 years ago, the United States, caught in a stupor of isolationism, closed its eyes as the rest of the world fell into deep conflict. There is no killing field on earth like Ukraine. Millions upon millions upon millions of innocent people have died at the hands of deadly dictators: Lenin, Stalin, and now Putin. If Putin is permitted to conquer Ukraine, he will not stop there. He's promised that. Support from the American people will ensure victory for Ukraine, with the free world girding liberty's shield. Recall the ancient words of Ukraine's poet laureate, Taras Shevchenko, who died almost 2 centuries ago in a ghastly prison. The time is near when on Ukraine's plains a shackled folk will burst its chains. Blessed be your children in these lands. By touch of your toil-hardened hands, day of hope arrive, Ukrainian glory shall revive. Today is that day.
Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave, on behalf of every father and every mother, wings for freedom. On behalf of our warriors, and paves the way for a new history.
Dobra večer, good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to Tochnyi. Some of the words inscribed within the Lincoln Memorial that echo to this day are that the brave men and women, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated their land far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. We are privileged today to be joined by Ukraine Rally DC, who's outside the Senate building, who has stood outside in the cold, in all weather conditions, campaigning just as so many of us have for the results of the vote that occurred in the US Congress the other day. Before we get to him, because he's having a few tech issues, we're going to hand over to Joseph for the news.
According to Ukraine's military intelligence, a fire erupted at an electrical substation overnight on April 16th in Russia's Bryansk Oblast, leading to power cuts at military and industrial sites. Although Ukraine did not acknowledge responsibility or posted a video on Telegram depicting a facility ablaze at night. The blaze is purported to have damaged a 100-kilowatt transformer at the substation, leaving the military base, a machine-building enterprise, and a railway-building equipment supplier without power, as per the agency. Her statement accused the enemy of utilizing these facilities in the war against Ukraine. The Kyiv Independent was unable to independently verify the assertions. There have been numerous accounts of fires and sabotage within Russia and occupied Ukrainian territories since the launch of the full-scale invasion. Earlier, Ukraine security services at the SBU reportedly targeted a Russian modernized Nebo-U long-range radar system in Bryansk Oblast, as per a source at the SBU. On the night of April 19th through 20th, Ukraine aircraft-type UAVs conducted an operation targeting Russian territory as part of a coordinated effort involving Ukraine's defense intelligence, the security services, and the special operations forces of the armed forces of Ukraine. According to information from sources within the DIU and SSU, multiple Ukrainian drones penetrated the territories of Belgorod, Bryansk, Kursk, Tula, Smolensk, Ryazan, Kaluga, and Moscow oblasts. The objective was to disrupt the energy infrastructure supplying power to the Russian defense industry installations. Following the attacks, some areas experienced disruptions in electricity and water supply. Sources from Ukrainska Pravda report that at least 3 power substations and a fuel storage facility were targeted, resulting in fires. Satellite imagery depicting the Russian S-400 air defense system and the Zhankoy airfield has been made public. The images were released by the Schemes project, showcasing remnants of 4 S-400 launchers captured by Planet Labs satellites. Moreover, the open-source intelligence community identified a vehicle resembling a 92N6E radar from the S-400 system. Additionally, there are signs of a fire near an ammunition depot at the Russian-controlled airfield. Previously, on the night of April 17th, a military airfield near Zhankoy in Crimea, temporarily occupied by Russia, came under attack. Ukrainian Defense Intelligence reported significant losses for the Russians, including the S-400 launchers, 3 radars, an air defense command post, and Fundament M airspace surveillance equipment due to fire damage. Dossier Shpiona telegram channel indicated 2 strikes, one on Zhankoy and another on a military equipment reception and repair center of the 77th Anti-Aircraft Missile Brigade in Koronovsk, Krasnodar Krai. During the attack, 2 S-300 launchers were under maintenance at the site, and there was a secondary explosion of unidentified ammunition. Preliminary reports suggest that 15 Russian servicemen were wounded and 22 are missing, while no information regarding helicopter damage is available. Although the method of the attack hasn't been officially disclosed, the War Home Telegram channel, known for sharing photos of Russian missile debris, released images of a missile fragment resembling a tail part of an ATACMS missile. Meanwhile, Ukrainian media citing their sources suggest that the strike was carried out using modernized Soviet-era weaponry. On the morning of April 19th, following reports from Russian sources regarding the crash of a Tupolev Tu-22 M3 Bachfire strategic bomber in Russia's Stavropol Krai, the Ukrainian Air Force commander asserted that the bomber was shot down while on a combat mission over Russian airspace. Air Force Commander Mykola Oleschuk stated that for the first time, Ukrainian anti-aircraft missile units, in collaboration with Defense Intelligence, successfully destroyed a strategic bomber equipped with Kh-22 cruise missiles utilized by Russian forces to target civilian areas in Ukraine. Oleschuk reported that during the attack, 2 such missiles were intercepted for the first time. During the early morning missile and drone assault launched by Russia against Ukraine, the Ukrainian airspace monitoring channels indicated that 3 Tu-22s launched missiles from the Black Sea west of Crimea's Sevastopol, targeting the Zatoka area in Odessa Oblast. The last of these 3 bombers crashed en route to its home base, Mozdok, North Ossetia, in Russia. Ukrainian Air Force spokesman Ilya Yevlash informed AFP that the downed Russian bomber had been involved in missile strikes on Dnipro and Kryvyi Rih during the morning assault, resulting in casualties including 2 children and numerous injuries. Forbes observed that if verified, this would mark the first loss of Russia's backfire bomber since the commencement of the full-scale invasion, and possibly the second or third loss in history. Ukraine previously targeted Tu-22M bases in Russia in 2023. According to Forbes, Ukraine may have employed either the U.S.-made Patriot missile system or its aging Soviet-era S-200 surface-to-air missiles with extended range to intercept the bomber. Ukraine's main Directorate of Intelligence updated stating that the Tu-22 was struck approximately 300 kilometers away from Ukraine using the same means that previously targeted a Russian A-50 radar aircraft. The bomber sustained damage and crashed upon its return to a neighboring region near North Ossetia. Russia's defense ministry asserted that the Tu-22M3 crashed while returning to its base after completing its mission and was flying without ammunition. They claimed that no one was on board at the time of the crash, with the 3 pilots ejecting, with 2 hospitalized and 1 missing. Russia possessed approximately 60 Tu-22Ms as of 2018, according to military balance data, utilizing them alongside a similar number of Tu-95 strategic bombers for air-launched cruise missile attacks against Ukraine. The Guardian revealed that over half of the 900 million Great British Pounds military aid fund allocated for Ukraine by the British Ministry of Defence remains unused due to bureaucratic delays in contracting. Critics argue that the International Fund for Ukraine, led by Britain and involving 9 nations, has been sluggish in delivering arms. Out of the total fund, including 500 million from the UK, only 404 million has been committed or spent in the past 2 years, according to this report. Defense ministers from donor countries have acknowledged that some contracted weapons may not reach Ukraine until spring 2025 due to delays caused by the extensive evaluation of numerous defense companies involved in contracts. Established in August 2022, the International Fund for Ukraine aims to support military training and armaments following Russia's full-scale invasion, functioning as a flexible, low-bureaucracy facility administered by the Ministry of Defense on behalf of an executive team consisting of the UK, Norway, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, and Lithuania. It sounds like they're going to have to take low bureaucracy out of that description of their organization. Contributions to the fund were made by Denmark, Iceland, Lithuania, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Australia, and New Zealand. The fund has financed over 100 unmanned aerial systems, 80 engineering vehicles, and air defense radars. Additionally, the UK is exploring the possibility of providing Ukraine with a prototype of the Dragonfire laser weapon capable of intercepting drones and missiles, as previously reported by Ukrinform. The Netherlands is earmarking over 200 million for new endeavors aimed at swiftly supplying additional air defense equipment and artillery ammunition to Ukraine, as announced by the Dutch Ministry of Defense. During an online meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council, the country's defense minister, Kassa Ollongren, stressed the urgency of providing Ukraine with air defense systems and artillery ammunition, noting the critical nature of the situation. The resources allocated by the Netherlands, already situated on the European continent, will be expedited for delivery to Ukraine. Specifically, the Netherlands is allocating 150 million to support the German Immediate Action on Air Defense Initiative, aimed at rapidly furnishing Ukraine with long-range air defense capabilities. Additionally, the Dutch Ministry of Defense is procuring short-range air defense systems for 60 million euros, capable of countering drone attacks. Furthermore, the Netherlands will contribute to Estonia's initiative to promptly supply artillery ammunition to Ukraine from its existing stocks, following a similar commitment to the Czech plan, which 250 million euros has been allocated. Previously, the Dutch government has pledged an additional 1 billion in military aid to Ukraine, with plans to provide a total of 3 billion in military assistance next year, and allocating 400 million to support the country's economy and repair critical infrastructure. In March 2024, it was reported that the Dutch government would acquire aviation weapons for F-16 fighter jets slated for transfer to Ukraine. Over 150 million has been allocated for the purchase of air-to-ground weapons for these jets, with contracts to be directly concluded with the manufacturers. Additionally, the Netherlands will procure reconnaissance drones for Ukraine valued at 200 million euros in consultations with partners with the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Furthermore, Ukraine is set to receive 14 rigid-hull inflatable boats, 5 militarized river patrol boats, and 3 CB-90 combat patrol boats from the Netherlands, according to details provided by the Dutch Defense Ministry. The Danish government has unveiled a new military aid package totaling 2.2 billion kroner, equivalent to 313 million USD for Ukraine, marking the 17th donation package from Denmark. As outlined by the Danish Ministry of Defense, approximately 28.5 million is earmarked for investments in Ukraine's defense industry. These funds will be utilized to procure and donate military equipment, ammunition, and drones to Ukraine. Furthermore, the package entails collaboration with the Netherlands and the Czech Republic for the production of missile components, alongside a significant contribution to bolstering Ukraine's naval capabilities. Agreements have been established with allied nations for the acquisition and donation of equipment from their defense industries, with some items sourced from Danish companies as well. According to the Danish Ministry of Defense, the cumulative military support for Ukraine from 2022 to 2028, including the donation package recently, totals approximately 41.4 billion kroner, which is equivalent to 3 billion USD. This support financed through the National Compromise and the Ukraine Fund, with around 2 billion USD remaining for the funds reserved for the period spanning from 2024 to 2028. Ukraine's Ministry of Strategic Industries reported that the allocated funds will not only furnish weapons to bolster Ukraine's defense against the Russian invasion, but also to help Ukraine's cash-strapped arms industry, which is exceeding the production quotas for the first time. In other words, they have excess production that if other countries invest in it, then they can produce more equipment. Minister of Ukraine Commission highlighted that while Ukraine's defense industry capacity stands at approximately 20 billion, the country has only 6 billion available for arms procurement. He noted that roughly one-third of all the machine tools in the country are currently operational due to insufficient funding to fulfill orders for remaining equipment. Denmark's contribution represents the inaugural donation to the Manufacturing Freedom Project, also known as Arms Producers in Ukrainian, Zbroyari. This initiative is part of a global fundraising campaign aimed at generating 10 billion for Ukrainian weapons production by the end of the current year. The Slovak fundraising campaign, Ammunition for Ukraine, was established in response to the refusal of the Fico government to participate in a Czech procurement initiative, which entailed acquiring hundreds of thousands of artillery rounds for Ukraine from sources outside the EU. In a video launching the campaign, one of the organizers, a 99-year-old journalist Otto Simko, emphasized the necessity of driving the Russians out of Ukraine to achieve peace that aligns with Ukrainian independence. He claimed that when he learned about the Czech government initiative, he was pleased to see every effort being made to assist Ukraine, as there's no alternative. Campaigners aim to demonstrate the majority of Slovaks disagree with the shift in the government's foreign policy following the September elections. Within 40 days of its inception, Ammunition for Ukraine has amassed 1.94 million euros in donations, with over 30,000 contributions, with an average donation of 64 euros according to the campaign's website. The co-founder Zuzana Isakova announced that the fundraiser would remain ongoing, with proceeds directed towards the Czech ammunition drive, which is anticipated to commence deliveries to Ukraine in June. Previously, Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala expressed confidence that the ammunition initiative could supply around 1.5 million artillery rounds to Ukraine within the year. The International Monetary Fund projects that despite the ongoing full-scale invasion, Ukraine's GDP will see growth of 3.2% in 2024 and potentially as high as 6.5% in 2025. A year ago, the IMF initially anticipated a 3% decline in Ukraine's GDP for 2023, but later revised the forecast to a 2% growth by year's end. The IMF's 2024 World Economic Outlook report also outlines expectations for changes in Ukraine's consumer prices, forecasting increases of 6.4% in 2024 and 7.6% in 2025. Unemployment in Ukraine is anticipated to see a slight decrease between the years 2024 and 2025. The invasion of Russia has dealt a severe blow to Ukraine's economy, resulting in a staggering 29.1% decline in GDP in 2022. However, due to successful government initiatives and international assistance, the economy has stabilized more rapidly than anticipated this year. Earlier this year, Ukraine's finance minister, Serhiy Marchenko, stated that the country would require $3 billion in additional financial aid each month to maintain the heightened economic pressures wrought by the war. On Tuesday, April 16th, President Volodymyr Zelensky endorsed legislation aimed at addressing various aspects of mobilization, military registration, and military service. According to the Verkhovna Rada's website, the president's signature has been affixed to the bill. Initially on April 16th, the bill has been signed by the head of parliament. The signed legislation will be published in the official parliamentary publication and will take effect 1 month after this publication. The law includes several amendments, including reducing the draft age from 27 to 25 years old and eliminating the classification of limited fitness for military service. Additionally, citizens permanently residing abroad must be registered in Ukraine's military records, with the specifics of this process to be determined by the Cabinet of Ministers. Moreover, civilian men aged 25 to 55 who have become disabled, excluding servicemen, must undergo another medical and social assessment to confirm the status. Individuals sentenced to probation may be called up for military service, except there are those convicted of crimes against Ukraine's national security. Women will not be subjected to mobilization, and instead, citizens aged 18 to 25 will undergo basic military training in lieu of conscription. Furthermore, men under the age of 60 who have not completed basic training or military service will be ineligible for civilian employment. Protests in Poland persist as demonstrators block traffic at 4 checkpoints along the Polish-Ukrainian border. According to the State Customs Service of Ukraine, as reported by European Pravda on the afternoon of April 19th, lorry traffic is halted at both entry and exit points at the Medyka-Shahini checkpoint. However, the flow of buses and cars remains unaffected. At the Korzowa-Krakowicz checkpoint, lorry traffic is reportedly halted until 9 a.m. on Saturday. The protesters are demanding restricted entry into Ukraine, allowing only 5 to 7 vehicles per hour, regardless of cargo type. Similar blockades are observed at Yahodin Dorusk, Rava-Ruska Hrabine checkpoints, where truck traffic is being impeded. Meanwhile, at the Ustulu Zozin, Dol Hobizha Uriniv, Budimirs Frusiv, Kroshenko Smilnitsia checkpoints are reported as operating normally. In recent developments, farmers lifted the blockade at the Uriniv checkpoint on April 16th. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk on April 18th urged Polish farmers to cease border blockades, emphasizing Ukraine's dire situation. According to reports by Ukrinform, citing insights from Katerina Rashevska, an international lawyer and expert at the Regional Center for Human Rights, the Russians are funding numerous programs aimed at re-educating Ukrainian children from the temporary occupied territories. Rashevska highlighted a shift in Russia's approach. Instead of permanently relocating children to Russian territory, they now temporarily transport them to Russia or Belarus as part of so-called re-education programs. These short-term trips, lasting 2 to 3 weeks, include initiatives like Cultural Map 85+4, University Changes, and More Than a Journey. These are the names of all their programs. During these temporary relocations, children are subjected to Russian alternative history teachings. Rashevska emphasized that substantial financial resources allocated to these trips and the distribution of gifts. She condemned these actions as multiple violations of international humanitarian law, encompassing aspects of militarization, Russification, and political indoctrination of Ukrainian children. Rashevska noted that the programs exclusively target children from the occupied territories of Ukraine. The case of the deportation of Ukrainian children, according to Rashevska, falls under Article 8 of the Rome Statute, which delineates war crimes. Dmytro Lubinets, the Verkhovna Rada Commissioner for Human Rights, urged diplomatic representatives of partner countries to intensify pressure on Russia and support Ukraine within the international coalition for the return of Ukrainian children. Irina Suslova, representative of the Ombudsman for Children's Rights, emphasized ongoing efforts to hold the Russian military and political leadership accountable. Ukrainian human rights activist Olha Ivazovska stressed the need to expand the list of perpetrators, noting that numerous individuals are involved in the destruction of an entire generation of Ukrainian children, warranting broader international justice. Oleg Kyiv, governor of Odessa Oblast, reported that on April 20th, Russian forces launched a missile attack on residential areas in Odessa, resulting in 8 casualties, including 2 children. Southern regions of Ukraine, including Odessa, frequently experience Russian attacks, causing significant damage to civilian infrastructure and resulting in civilian casualties. The missile attack on April 20th caused fires and destroyed multiple homes, with a woman and child rescued from one of the affected residences, as stated by Kyiv on Telegram. According to Kyiv, 2 individuals sustained minor injuries, while a child requires hospitalization. Subsequently, the account updated the casualty count to 8, including a 4-year-old child and an 80-year-old woman, based on clarified information. A day earlier, a Russian missile strike targeted Odessa, injuring a civilian and causing damage to the city's port infrastructure. Ukrzaliznytsia reported a deliberate, extensive assault by Russian forces on civilian infrastructure facilities in the city of Dnipro and Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. The company stated that some of their railway personnel sustained injuries during the attack, but further clarification is still being provided. Petro Kotin, the acting chairman of Energoatom, the national nuclear energy generating company of Ukraine, highlighted concerns regarding incomplete repairs and inspections at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant due to lack of skilled personnel employed by Russian occupiers. Kotin explained to Radio NV, as reported by Ukrinform, that the Russian authorities hire individuals regardless of their qualifications, posing a significant threat to the plant's equipment. He noted that these actions lead to frequent equipment failures and a deteriorating situation, with repairs and routine checks not being fully conducted as required. Kotin emphasized the importance of regular inspections for the nuclear plant's equipment to ensure its proper functioning. Additionally, with Power Unit 4 recently undergoing transition to a cold shutdown, Energoatom, that name makes sense now, expressed concerns about potential serious defects that may have been identified during this process. It's worth noting that all 6 reactors of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant have transitioned to cold shutdown for the first time since late 2022, with Power Unit 4 completing the procedure on April 13, 2024. Since March 4, 2022, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been under Russian occupation, during which time the Russians have violated nuclear and radiation safety principles by laying mines within the plant's territory, obstructing qualified personnel from carrying out their duties, and disconnecting the plant from Ukraine's energy system. I'll add here myself that they also store military equipment there and appear to actually launch strikes occasionally from these sites. So, despite the presence of an IAEA mission at the plant since September 2022, the Russians hinder IAEA experts from accessing the entire territory of the plant. On Saturday, the U.S. House passed a long-pending aid package for Ukraine. Despite strong conservative opposition, the lower chamber approved the measure with a vote of 311 to 112, with one member voting present. The Biden administration has emphasized the critical need for this assistance, warning that without it, Ukraine could face significant challenges in defending itself against Russia by the end of the year. The bill allocates $60.8 billion for Ukraine, with over $23 billion earmarked for replenishing weapons and supplies provided by the U.S. Additionally, it includes $13.8 billion for advanced weapon systems and $10 billion in repayable economic aid. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer brokered a deal on Saturday to bring the House-passed foreign aid package to the Senate for an initial vote on Tuesday. Following this development, the Senate adjourned until Tuesday morning. And that'll do it for the news this week. Thanks for tuning in to Tochnyi. We'll see everyone next time.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. We are now going to head over to our next segment with John, who's up here to take, let's just say, could we call it a Q&A, John?
To some extent, yes. On the supplemental for assistance to Ukraine that was just passed by the House of Representatives the other day and will hopefully be passed by the Senate and signed by the President a little bit later this week.
Okay, chat. Please fire away with your questions for John.
So what I was going to start with is just a very brief top-line summary of what's in the bill. So there's really 2 bills here. The first is the Ukraine Security Supplemental Act that contains the bulk of it. The main items there are $7.8 billion in presidential drawdown authority on top of the currently unexercised from the prior fiscal year's $3.9 billion worth of PDA. And then there's an additional $13.8 billion in appropriations for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, which is the pool of money that the DoD uses to contract goods and services from the U.S. defense industry and potentially foreign defense industries as well to be provided to Ukraine. And then finally, $1.6 billion in foreign military financing loans for Ukraine and Europe. So those loans can be issued to either Ukraine or any of our other allies in Europe, and that will allow them to use those loans to finance the purchase of defense articles from the United States via the Foreign Military Sales Program. And then there is also the, let me pull up the bill real quick. Where is it? The 21st Century Peace Through Strength Act, which covers a wide variety of things. The one relevant to Ukraine is the Repo Act, which provides for the confiscation of frozen Russian assets. There's some very specific nuances here that I'm still trying to work through, so I don't want to get too deep into that at the risk of misleading people. But suffice to say, there were some slight revisions to the text that was actually passed by the House as compared to what was originally proposed. The first of those being the original suggested language required the president to confiscate these assets. The new language does not. So the President Biden has discretion whether or not to actually make this decision. But we'll have to see how that turns out. And then there's also some constraints now on the ability of those funds to be used to procure weapons. I believe that was also tweaked in the form of the bill that was passed by the House. The version that was passed concerns using those funds for purely economic and humanitarian matters. What Erlend has pulled up there, that's the supplemental. So that has the actual authorities and appropriations that will be used to provide security assistance. Then there is also a loan and to provide just general humanitarian assistance and direct economic assistance to the Ukrainian government. I don't remember the top line value off the top of my head. There's a bunch of different numbers in there I have to do math with. But suffice to say that loan will be forgivable, 50% of it by November 15th of this year with congressional review. And then by sometime in 2026, the remaining 50% can be forgiven at the discretion of whoever is in the Oval Office at that point.
Yeah, John, at least I have a question because I've seen so many people shouting about let's transfer this and that and get the stuff over immediately. But realistically, how do you think this is going to play out if everything is approved and signed this week?
So, I mean, in principle, the drawdown can begin right now. It could already be occurring for all we know. There isn't a particular. So the president has to notify Congress when a drawdown under Section 506 of the Foreign Assistance Act is made. Section 506, that's presidential drawdown authority for those who aren't familiar. But there is no specific time frame. So that is the indicator that a drawdown has occurred, but the actual grant and transfer of those defense articles can occur well in excess or well after the notification. So, for example, it's entirely possible we could have already begun transferring these items to Ukraine. On the other hand, we might wait until the passage of the bill. In any case, I don't expect the package to be publicly announced until the bill is signed.
Yeah, I understand. And Callum came with a question that is quite relevant. I think Biden still hasn't used the prior approved
Yes, he
design.
has. Yeah.
He has. Okay.
Yes, he's used all of it. So, well, I should clarify. So, all of it's been committed, not all of it's been obligated. So, what that means is that we have declared and decided how we are going to use all of it, but not all of it has actually been contracted with to actually procure those defense articles and those services. This is kind of speaks to a broader issue. The USAI was conceived of as a rapid acquisition tool to provide, again, defense articles and services from U.S. and allied defense industries to Ukraine. In that regard, as an acquisitions program, it's basically a complete failure. They have not been able to turn around the contracting process very quickly. They've been able to do it quite a bit faster than the normal acquisition schedule, but it's not responsive to evolving battlefield needs in the way it was originally envisaged to be. So I think the figure, I think Colby's referenced this before, is I want to say for only 45% of the, less than 45%, I think, of the contracted USAI defense articles and services have actually been provided to Ukraine. So, there's issues there, and there always have been.
I wonder maybe if it's a little bit confusion between the USI funds and the drawdown authority, where there were some.
I should clarify, I've been texted by Colby that transfer cannot begin in advance of the congressional notification.
Understood. Well, I wonder maybe there is a little bit confusion between the money that was left over because of the difference between the value that they found and the USI funds. But as far as I understand, is it correct that the lacking of money to supplement those drawdowns that they have left over from last year, that it's not addressed in this bill?
Yes, so there is roughly a $10 billion deficit in DoD stocks. So essentially, and Colby had a very long thread that went into many of these issues in a fair amount of depth. The problem was when the administration requested replacement funds in the previous supplemental appropriations acts that were passed in fiscal year 2022, and then obviously for fiscal year 2023. The problem was they did not request enough replacement funds for the value of the drawdown authority they requested. So when a defense article is granted to a foreign country via Section 506 of the Foreign Assistance Act, again, Presidential Drawdown Authority, the valuation is determined via the DoD's financial management regulations, which specified the values the value used for the purposes of that statute is the net book value. So that's the historical acquisition cost minus cumulative depreciation. And so if you kind of sit down and think about it for 2 minutes, the issue sort of becomes immediately apparent. If we draw down an M142 HIMARS that we procured in 2001, the net book value of that vehicle is going to be significantly less than the replacement cost if we were to order a new HIMARS today to replace what we transferred. And so I'm not exactly clear on what happened, what the internal process, the White House, the National Security Council, and the DoD went about determining, assessing the replacement funds they needed when they submitted these requests to Congress. But in any case, what they requested was egregiously insufficient to actual needs in reality. So what's happened is the cost to replace everything that we've sent Ukraine thus far exceeds the amount of replacement funding that Congress appropriated by about $10 billion. That's accumulated again over the course of fiscal year 2022 and 2023. Now, the administration has requested, or I should say, what they got what they're getting in Speaker Johnson's foreign aid package in the Ukraine Security Supplemental Act is, as I said earlier, about $13.4 billion in replacement funds earmarked for Ukraine specifically. Well, there's an existing $10 billion deficit. So that wipes out $10 billion of the $13.4 billion appropriated in replacement funds immediately to just correct the existing deficit. And we'll now have basically a tiny amount left in replacement funds to support over $10 billion in drawdown authority. So essentially the same issue that we've had, the past 6 months, where President Biden just in the National Security Council, they did not exercise the drawdown authority they had because they didn't have any replacement funds and didn't want to take on the additional risk of making those transfers without those replacement funds immediately on hand. We're going to repeat that basically pretty soon on into the future later this year. Again, combination of the administration in their request to Congress initially, to the Senate, they didn't request nearly enough replacement funds. They just didn't. It was just, I have no idea how they're reaching these values, but they have no bearing on reality as far as I can tell. And then the amount wasn't, revised upwards to actually address any of these issues either by the Senate or by the House. So we've kicked the can down the road, but we're still in a pretty bad place long-term funding-wise, unless, kind of further down the line after the election, if the lame duck session of Congress, post-November is able to pass some additional security assistance authorities and appropriations.
Understood. Yeah, another question from Kellen, which I think is actually quite interesting, because there's apparently some problems financing this Czech ammo initiative. So Kellen asks, for John, can USI be used to help fund the Czech ammo initiative?
Yes, it can.
That's great news. And then next from Chris, any update on the recent explosions at the US and UK ammo production facilities? It's not necessarily on this topic, really. Okay, well, do you have any information about that? I certainly don't know anything about those.
I suspect it's probably coincidental. It was a minor fire here at Scranton, no damage, and as far as I'm aware, there wasn't any reported significant damage at the BAE Washington facility. So, industrial accidents happen.
Yep. Yeah, and then Chris also asks, more relevant to this topic, are all US weapons shipped after the bill or some stored in European warehouses? I've seen some messages about, there are basically things ready in Europe to go, but never any reference to actually any good sources for that. Have you seen anything about this, or do you know anything about US storages in Europe being possible to use?
Essentially everything that we're going to provide the next package, at least the next package, should already be pre-positioned in Poland and Romania. And that's been publicly reported.
Oh, okay. Good news. And then the last question about this topic from Robin. Is there time to order items under the USI and out to Ukraine before, I guess, ship out to Ukraine before January, so another explanation, before Trump can cancel them if he gets elected?
In terms of, in principle, Biden could use all of this before, if Trump ends up winning in November. I mean, he would be sworn into office on January 20th. I mean, there's time to, if the DoD is quick about this, that they should be able to exercise all of this authority and obligate all the USAI funds in that time frame.
Yeah, good. Are there any other questions from the panel to John? I guess I want to hear your take on this paragraph here, John, if you see it on the screen. The 505 transfer of long-range ATACMS required as soon as practicable.
Well, if you go down to the second paragraph, there's a waiver, so this means nothing.
So it doesn't mean anything?
No, because there's a waiver.
Okay. So what is the point of having this at all?
I mean, this is pretty standard for a lot of stuff passed by Congress that'll require the president to do stuff. Next paragraph is a waiver. This is true of so much stuff. going back many, many decades. But in any case, I mean, we've already given them a small number of M39 ATACMS, and Mark Turner from the Senate Intelligence Committee was saying that, you know, we're going to transfer longer range ATACMS in the new package, so presumably 300 kilometers, so M39 A1 presumably. So that's likely already going to happen regardless of this language.
Understood. Well, hoping for the best. There certainly is an immediate need, and has been for a long time in Ukraine. And I hope that this will also bring some positivity into support for Ukraine in the US long term. So I've got another question. Volcano. Do US military replacement funds need to come from an Ukraine bill, or can it be a separate one?
So yeah, I mean, it can be any supplemental appropriations act, but the sort of political reality on the Hill is it took a Herculean effort to get this supplemental passed. It's not likely we're going to get another.
So you mean it's not likely we're going to get another in this budgetary year?
Not before the election, anyway.
Understood. Well, thank you. I'm going to turn back to Jonathan.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, Erlend. And next up, we have a segment on Ukrainian restoration and some very important progress that's come to light from contributor Bionade. Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, it's basically a news segment. I'm gonna read out some information which were in the last newsletters from the Ministry of Restoration in Ukraine. So I would say let's start. I think we also have like a bit of pictures here. So yeah, it's related to the one or the other news. All right, let's start. Extra 100 million for housing compensation program from the CEB. The Council of Europe Development Bank provides 100 million in compensation for destroyed housing. The bank's administrative board made the decision, and negotiations are underway to sign a framework loan agreement. This amount will be enough to provide more than 2,000 housing certificates for those Ukrainians whose homes were destroyed due to Russian military aggressions. Since the launch of the state compensation program, more than 11,000 applications have been submitted, and since January, 1,637 Ukrainian families already have purchased a new home for a total of 3.4 billion Ukrainian hryvnia. A large government team and international partners are working together to rebuild Ukraine. Yeah, to the next point, the Danube Shipping Company has built and launched its third LNG barge. The barge you can see here in the picture. Like the previous two, it will transport up to 2,200 tons by river. Vessels of the series are built at the company's own expense without attracting outside funds. Technologically, this is due to converting two lighter, small self-propelled vessels through an insert cut from the third lighters. UDP expands its cargo capacity at the expense of the old fleet, which the use of it is basically becoming economically unfeasible. In addition, the cost of manufacturing SLG barges is lower than building new vessels, and this also means additional 100 jobs for Ukraine shipbuilding and opportunities to develop companies' capacities in this area. So basically what's happening, they're taking two smaller barges, cutting it off in the middle, joining them together, and then you have like this bigger transport barges, the old barges, like mentioned in this article. are basically economically not feasible anymore, and so they are getting repurposed, which is quite an interesting point. And I think we mentioned in some of our broadcasts before the Danube shipping is starting to take really up some loads there. So yeah, important news. The government of the Slovak Republic has approved a proposal to introduce a direct railway connection between Kyiv and Kozice. You can see here Kozice has an international airport, which is going to Great Britain, Dublin, London, Liverpool, Switzerland, Austria, so yeah, Poland, Czech, and also oh god, somewhere down there. I'm not sure which country it is, but down to the Balkans. Yeah, it's quite
Croatia.
a. It could be Croatia. I'm not 100% sure. So I think Croatia is a little bit longer. Maybe I'm not sure. Okay, back to the yeah. Reason for this is basically that yeah, there's another good connection to capital and also a big city in the neighboring countries of Ukraine. People can fly in, for example, from Liverpool directly to Kozice, board the train and go directly through the borders without many changes, and can basically make the trip directly to Kyiv from there. All right. So, developments of the Ukrainian-Hungarian border, the opening of a new border crossing point is agreed. Ukraine and Hungary have agreed to open the Velika Palat-Nagy Hodos checkpoint for passengers vehicles and allow the movement of empty trucks weighing more than 7.5 tons at the Luzhanka Berog-Zurani checkpoint. As of now, there are 5 automobile checkpoints in Hungary. Only one checkpoint can handle trucks which weigh more than 7.5 tons. Both loaded and empty vehicles go there. About 220 trucks cross it daily to leave Ukraine. So yeah, another checkpoint will obviously help to put a little bit less stress on the streets and yeah, possibly shorten the waiting lines. Ukraine's Ministry for Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development has agreed with the Ministry of Transport and Maritime Affairs of Montenegro to liberalize all traffic, freight traffic between the two countries starting June 1st, 2024. So basically they agreed to liberalize all their freight traffic, which means they can freely move between these countries and don't have to do much paperwork like before. It's basically, I think, kind of a model which is like actually happening in the European Union, which doesn't mean there couldn't be any protests. We have this like in Poland. They also have like an agreement with all of the European Union, but like if some farmers start to blockade these border checkpoints, then it's obviously another topic which needs to be worked on. So the Exim Bank agreed to a $156 million loan for Ukrainian railways. It's the first fully funded project by the United States government towards Ukraine's economic recovery. In Kyiv, the Export-Import Bank of the United States, President Chair of the Board of Directors Rita Joe Levis announced that the Exim Board of Directors of the United States last week approved the historic $156.6 million loan to Ukrainian railways to support the potential acquisition of 40 Warbeck diesel locomotives. The other officials were U.S. Special Representative of Ukraine's economy, former U.S. Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker, and Deputy National Security Advisor, International Economics, Dalip Sin. This transaction is the first project fully financed by the United States government agency in Ukraine since Russia began its invasion in 2022. EXIM examines our transaction on a case-by-case basis. All right. So then we have news around the EU integration of the road and transport services market reform draft law number 4560 is approved for second reading. The Verhovna Rada Committee on Transport Infrastructure has recommended that the government law should be adopted for second reading, and Ukraine's Ministry of Communities, Territories and Development developed basically this draft law. The key objective of the document is to regulate the transport on the road and on the market, and its activities is basically working after European Union regulations. It concerns the European integration of services in this area and the adaptation of Ukrainian legislation to European Union acts. All right, so I think we have like one more picture. It's about the Ukrainian corridor, the humanitarian sea route. A total of 1,350 vessels were at the point of publishing this article, taking the route already. Like you can see, 38.4 million, tons, million empty tons, metric tons were basically transported. 26.4 were agricultural products, other cargo around 12 million tons. So 40 vessels are being loaded now for departure, 8 vessels for arrival, 11 vessels. I think if you visit the profile from exit, you can see the actual numbers are a little bit different, but this is basically the numbers the ministry is usually publishing. We have a small overview about the destroyed infrastructure. What was destroyed, what was rebuilt. You can have a look on this for yourself here, and I will come to our last point from the news, which is meeting with Flixbus, reform of bus transportation, development of mobility and connection with Europe. The Deputy Minister for Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development of Ukraine, Serhiy Derkach, met with Flixbus CEO Andrei Schwamlein and CIO Daniel Kraus. The key topics of the meeting were the growing need for the development of passenger transport in Ukraine and the implementation of international bus transportation reform. The development of mobility, domestic and international transport links, the integration of the Ukrainian passenger transport market into the European Union, and the possibility of implementing joint projects. During the conversation, they discussed, among other things, the particularities of opening international and domestic routes in Ukraine, the difficulties of Ukrainian regulation, and the experience of regulating this area in different countries. So, like we heard in many news, Ukraine is adopting laws which are very similar or already are EU laws. They are working on this project to be as close as to the EU as possible, which is important for Ukraine if they want to actually join the EU in the future. So, I think they're doing good progress here. All right, that's it from the news. Back to you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Bionade. Next up, we have Bionade from Ukraine. Now, for anyone who's seen his post on his timeline, Bionade from Ukraine has been a little bit under the weather. He's been undergoing surgery. He's fine. He's coping really well with it. He was able, however, to record us an update on his eponymous account, and he is
But Jonathan,
yes,
should we postpone it because I see that Alex is here?
absolutely. Yeah, welcome, Alex.
Is that your guest, by the way?
I believe so. Let's check. Alex, can you hear
Hi.
us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Well, yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay, so I'm Alex from Oslo. Yeah.
Oh no,
to
that's not
Erlend.
the right Alex I
No.
thought about.
Sorry.
Well, welcome. Alex is, but so okay. I'll introduce Alex. Alex, I met Alex in Oslo. He's a great guy, and we're gonna have some cool content with Alex soon. So maybe you can say what you're working on.
Yeah, so I guess everyone here have seen already what I posted on Discord. So I'm mainly focusing on Mariupol, what Russians did there, and especially about the alleged reconstruction of the city that they're making so much noise about on social media, YouTube, everything, and which is I don't know how explicit I can be here, but it's a bunch of crap. So yeah, that's my main project. And can you still hear me, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So okay, so basically, I do some geolocations. Oh, thank you for sharing the screen with my map. And yeah, if you have a minute, I can guide you through the map.
Yeah, sure. So this is a
You-
little bit improvised, but yeah, I mean, where should I
If
zoom?
you filter out everything on the left and just keep the blue dots, which is the siege of Mariupol, and then we can take the other layers. Yeah, so you remove the Mariupol 22 and the bottom one. Okay, so you keep, okay, that's Mariupol. And then you can take the siege of Mariupol, which is the layer below that.
Oh, there, yeah.
Yes. So here I have mapped, I don't remember the number right now, but I have here on one side. So I can tell you it's 188 pictures taken during the siege of Mariupol. So from February 24, 22 to the 10th of May. So if you click on any of those dots, you will see what happened there. That is the police school of Mariupol. It was bombed on March 22nd, I believe. There, you should have a, yeah, you should see it on the left, a short description. It's in Italian, yeah. And yeah, okay. I started this one in Italian because it was my idea to counter Russian propaganda in Italy, because they were arranging an event to show the reconstruction of Mariupol. And I was following the city for 2 years, and I said, "Oh my God, you cannot do that. It's not true." So I started mapping the pictures that I knew, and then mounting more and more layers on that. So yeah, the first layer is this one, which are pictures from the Battle of Mariupol, the first 2 months of the war. So the next one would be Mariupol 22, and then you got pictures of the city right after the siege. That's a very interesting picture, the one that you got there, Erla. If you can open that. These 2 tanks, I believe the picture is from around between June and September 22, and it's taken. If you have seen any pictures of Mariupol recently, the Russians showed that they had finished some high-rise blocks, and they were giving away apartments to the people around there. These 2 tanks are placed next to those blocks, and again, it's in 2022. Those blocks were being built already by Ukraine before the war. So Russians just stole them, finished them and they gave away. Actually, local people said just one building to make a movie, a propaganda movie, and then yeah. So that's interesting because I found that picture in those days where they were promoting those apartments. So if you can go on the next layer, 2023 perhaps is not that interesting because you still see the city is ruined and they are doing some works around, but still the pictures are of a broken city. That one that you had before, that one, if you can open it, it's interesting just for a detail. That's the police department of Mariupol. As you can see on the previous picture, you have a writing on the wall. That's Akhmat. So they're the Chechens. And actually, I did find the picture of the actual moment while they were doing that writing on the wall. It's not on my map yet, but I'm going to place it on the map soon.
And here you can see they looks like they canceled out Trisub.
No, it's still there. That's another side of the building. So it's on the other corner.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I understand what you mean. So it looks like an Ukrainian insignia that they cancel. I don't know. I could be. And the next layer that you should pick up now is not the latest one, but you should go to the Russian new constructions. So that one. So here you can see what Russians have been doing. Well, they started very early. They started in Nevsky, which is on the west side of Mariupol in June 22. They started building new buildings. So everything that is mapped here are brand new buildings, but they are, well, here you got the satellite images that I do not know if I'm allowed to share, but I found them and it's very important because you cannot see this on Google yet. So you can click on any of them and you will see some imagery of these new buildings. That one is a small one. I do not know what that is, to be honest. That's very close to the apartment of the person that I know, which I told you about, Erlend, when we met.
Yep.
It's just in front of his house. And that one that you got on the screen now, it's interesting because before that, there was a house there. And then Russians demolished that house and they built a new one, changing the address. So now is the same address as before, but as you can see there is 8/1. Previous address was just 8. And they made some rules that if you were a person from Mariupol and you have lost your house, you can claim it. If you went to the public office in person with the original documents, but you cannot have an original document for a different address. So there is no one who could claim that apartment because the 8/1 didn't exist before.
Yeah, so they basically changed the address just a little bit to make sure no one can come and claim their
exactly.
property.
And there is an example very close to the one where you are now. If you just go a little bit to the left, there are 2 dots. Yes, that one. Yeah, for example. So those are in Metallurgiv, I think 81, but they change it to 81/1 or 81/P. So before that, there was another block which I mapped on a different layer, and now it's gone. They make a new one, and that is for sale just for Russian people because no people from Mariupol can claim any apartments there. And now if you go to the next layer, which is the demolished buildings, you will see the amount of demolished buildings, which is huge compared to those that they rebuilt. So anytime. And by the way, the demolished buildings that I mapped are around 365. I can give you the right figure. No, sorry, 337 that are on my map. But I found, after our chat, I went and checked on different channels. So there is a common number. It's between 440 to 460 high-rise buildings that were demolished. So I could confirm only 335, but there are more. And the figures that I gave you, around 450, is confirmed of both Ukrainian, Russian, and ONG sites. And I read on local channels that Russians are planning to demolish even more. And by the way, here we're just talking about high-rise buildings, so 2-3 floors and more. Here, you have to stay there, Erlend. I am going to tell something there, but if I
Yes.
have time, I don't know, because I just push myself into the call. And
That's fine.
okay, so I just finish, and then we are going to see something there. So the Russians are planning to demolish 300 more buildings in the city, but in my map, and the figure of around 450 is just high-rise buildings. We are not talking about private properties, because it's impossible to tell. There are so many private small houses that are totally destroyed. They disappeared. And even myself, when I was doing my map, which by the way is work in progress, so it's not finished, some places I had to go back to Bing maps, which are the most outdated ones, to see, okay, was there a building there ever or not? Because it was just dust. And if you are there, Erlend, I hope you can keep this layer of the demolished buildings. You see how many demolished buildings we have in that area, but you can also bring up the 22 layer, which should be below that. Yes, 24, sorry, my mistake, 24. Yeah, so if you click, you can enlarge a little bit. We can find the Yorit piece of art. If you zoom in, I can guide you a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, it's on top of your screen now, so you have to go further up a bit more. There. The one on the top, the blue one on the top. You got two, no, on the top. Yeah, doors. Exactly, we are there, so you can open that. So I don't
Yes,
know,
this is
everyone
a
in Italy is
this,
very familiar with this one.
yeah, this is horrible. Jonathan,
Yeah.
have you seen this before?
Yes, the
Okay.
mural.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you know what that is and who did it?
I recall.
So,
yes.
okay, I can give a brief story about that, and I'm happy that there were two icons there. I'm happy you chose this one, Erlend, because it's the most recent one. So this one is made by an Italian, let's call him artist, who is very far left on a political side, and he bought all the Donbas genocide propaganda. So it's very close to Russian propaganda. And last June, so in June 23, it was called to Mariupol to make this mural. And what he wanted to depict is a small girl from Donbas who was killed by NATO bombs. So on her side, you would see pictures of bombs falling with NATO written on them. This small girl has got the DPR colors on her eyes. So I don't have close details, but she's got those colors in her eyes. The signs that you see on her chins are what he's doing on every single portrait he's doing, that is something up to him. So I'm not going into that one. But what is very nice is that that mural was falling apart, and now part of that has been removed because that building, which is one of the very few, if you go back to the map, Erlend, you will see that there are just 2 buildings left in that area. All the others with the red icon on top have been demolished. So that Italian artist wants to make propaganda in an area that doesn't longer exist, because all the other buildings have been demolished, destroyed by Russians, bombed. I also have some footage of tanks shooting against those buildings. So yeah, I get so pissed off that I almost cannot cannot talk. But yeah, that's you know how they do this,
Yes,
and
and
that's
I think
terrible.
the story about how so both you and also Daniela had been
Yeah.
trying to locate where this thing was, and they were
Yeah, if you open the picture where you are now, that's the one that I showed you when we met.
Yeah.
Because if you go to the next one here, you should be able to see, you see the mural behind there. So because it's impossible to recognize the location from the regional map, all the buildings are gone. So I'm following one account from Mariupol, which I discovered just by luck, I guess. And I believe is a lady. I don't have any information, but she's posting, or he is posting, or whatever, a lot of pictures and videos every day from Mariupol, from this area. So I had seen that painting several times on her profile. So one day I was able to find the location thanks to these 2 pictures. And actually, these were a couple of the pictures that I mapped on the very first date when I started working on my map. Of course, that mural is very important for me since I'm Italian, and I feel ashamed of that as an Italian.
But is it fair to say that this is what sparked your interest?
Not just that, the story that I told you is that I know a person. So my interest for Ukraine and Mariupol in particular is that I know when I was working in Italy, I was working with Eastern Europe markets, and I had a contact in Ukraine. He was our distributor. He was from Donetsk. So we've been in touch sometimes, not all the time. But just before the full-scale invasion broke out in 22, I wrote to him and I asked him how he was doing, if he was worried, and stuff like that. And I said, well, Alex, we left Donetsk in 2015 because Russian occupied everything, and I lost my house. They stole it from me. It was hard for me to understand that, to be honest, back then. And then he said, no, we moved to Mariupol because it's still possible to live a normal life here. And we are talking about around February 20th, 22. And then we were chatting in the following days. And then, of course, we were chatting less and less. And then suddenly I said, okay, I cannot write to him because I don't want to endanger him, because perhaps his phone could be vibrating while he's in a danger position. So I will not write to him, but I was checking on Instagram, because we were chatting on Instagram the last time he was online, just to see if he was still alive. And luckily, after 2-3 weeks, he wrote me saying that he was safe and he was on his way to Switzerland. So he is out of Ukraine. I never asked him questions how he got out of Ukraine, because he doesn't want to talk about war. He prefers to talk about the future. I respect that. But yeah, he escaped, and he sent me a couple of pictures that actually are on this map. I could try to guide you there, but anyway, some of the first pictures that I mapped are from his apartment. And that's also the way I started to map the city, because I've never been there. I do not know the city in person. So all the pictures that I did place in this map, okay, some of them had an address on the local channels, but many of them, if not the most part of them, are just pictures that I placed myself looking to the surroundings. So yeah, here there is also his apartment, and that's a good example of what the Russian reconstruction is. If I still have a minute, I don't know. I can.
Sure.
Okay, so basically, we got three types of reconstructions. We've got brand new buildings, which are those with the purple icons in the map, and we've got the buildings that did exist and have been repaired a little bit. But repairing means that they changed the windows, they painting the facades so they look great on the outside, but in the inside they are still bombed, burned, damaged. It's impossible to live there. We can try Erlend. If you just filter out everything and you just keep the 24 layer, so the blue, you just keep the blue one, you keep that, and you remove the others. And you zoom in, please. Okay, it's south, there. Zoom in a bit more. Okay, you got three icons. Okay, let me see now. I got it. Try. Okay, yeah, I see that. If you move a bit to the left, a bit more. Or okay, I see it. So you see that one. Try to open that. That is the building where the person that I know used to live. From the outside, it's perfect. It's white walls. You see the new windows. That's the inside.
Yeah, so it's essentially Potemkin
Exactly. And
village. Yeah.
on my map, just on my map, I have at least 5 examples of these buildings that are finished in their words. So they say, okay, perfect. We rebuilt Mariupol, which Ukrainians destroyed, by the way, because the Russian version is that it was Azov mainly, but also the rest of Ukrainian army that, hiding behind the civilians, destroyed the city, while the Russians tried to liberate it, and they were not allowed to use too powerful weapons because they didn't want to hurt the civilians. And I have the Russian page that I showed you when we met is saying that.
Yeah.
So you can imagine my blood pressure.
Well,
when I
you're
read
doing
that.
a really great job on documenting that they're lying all the time, because this map is of course a testament to those that they are
Yeah.
lying constantly. And
Yes, it is.
yeah, and thank you so much for doing it and joining us a little bit.
I'm sorry that I jogged the call.
Yeah, that's very, very nice. Anyways, but yeah, I hope we can do more talks about this, because I
Sure.
think Mariupol is very important to talk about. So yeah, next time we will probably look into some certain topics more in detail, I guess.
Sure.
And I also, by the way, posted the link to the map in the description of the video. So if you look at the check out the description now, it should be there should be a link there. And thank you so much, Alex, for
Next time, I'm also going to share some stories, some links about what's going on in the city.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our next talk.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
sorry
Alex.
again for hijacking the call.
And please stay.
Yeah,
We're
I
gonna,
am staying here.
okay, we're gonna play the But Jonathan, what we're going to play now? I forgot.
One PSA, that's okay. Ukraine's greatest generation for this week is Petrichenko. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Let me repeat that. Pavlo Petrichenko, the prominent activist who was recently killed in combat. However, we are not going to do a segment on that because there is a Kyiv Independent article, which is far better than anything that I could produce. And I would thoroughly recommend checking out the Kyiv Independent article on Pavlo Petrichenko. Next up, however, I'm going to put everybody to sleep with a very soporific segment, which is on a very serious topic. Basically, the Russians looted 15,000 pieces of art from the Kherson Art Museum. We're going to show you some of those. In 2020, the Russian invasion of Ukraine and Kherson, Russian soldiers plundered Kherson's Museum of Ukrainian Art. Shortly before Ukrainian forces liberated the city on October the 31st, 2022, Russian trucks queued outside the museum. Russian troops, along with officials from the Russian Ministry of Culture and plainclothes FSB officers, quote, stuffed around 15,000 pieces of art onto trucks and buses. If you're casting your mind back to what the German Nazis did in 1945, those comparisons are impossible to ignore. We're going to show some of these works to highlight what remains stolen and what could be argued any delays in liberation bring. The picture before you here is Kherson's Museum of Ukrainian Art. And we're going to show you some of what the Russians stole, starting with this painting by Mikhail Bryansky, who lived from 1830 to 1908. Following is a painting by Alexander Rusakov. And following this is a painting by Ivan Pokitonov entitled Picket on the Side of the River at Sunset. The next painting that was stolen was by Alexei Shovkunevko, and it's called On the Dnipro, Kherson. Of note about this particular artist, the Kherson Regional Art Museum was named after Alexei Shovkunevko, who won the Golden Prize at the 1937 International Exhibition in Paris. Russia's theft here of the painting On the Dnipro, Kherson, which was painted in 1914, is a painting which captures the then tranquil atmosphere of Ukraine's main river. Here's another Alexei Shovkunevko's paintings. It's called Two Girls, painted in 1940, again looted from the Kherson Art Museum. The Ukrainian artist and teacher Leonid Chichkan, who lived from 1911 to 1977, was a student of Alexei Shovkunevko, who painted mostly Carpathian landscapes, still lifes, portraits, and a variety of genre paintings. Here is his painting entitled Noon, which was painted in 1969. Hirori Kurnikov with his painting Autumn Time. This guy lived between 1887 and 1977. Kurnikov was an author of notable landscapes and still lifes. Konakov sought to create a generalized epic image of the Kherson Oblast, which I hope you agree comes across in this particular painting of his. We're going to finish this segment with a painting by Ivan Ivanovsky, an oil-on-canvas painting called View of the City of Odessa, painted in 1846. This ends the segment on looted Kherson artwork for this week. There's more we could show on perhaps a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Please let us know. Thank you, everybody. I hope that conveys. But there are many other things we could show you. These paintings are all looted and in the hands of the Russian invaders who stole them. We're going to bring you more of those more often. So moving on, as we said earlier, and as you might have seen on German aid to Ukraine's timeline, he's had surgery recently, but he's doing okay. He's left us with this update. Please feel free to ask any questions. He will definitely answer them for you.
Hello. I'm German aid to Ukraine, and this week on this podcast, my segment will be a bit different. I will attend emergency surgery on Monday. Yeah, I'm nearly dead because I'm a workaholic. For those who don't know it, I'm drinking a lot of alcohol at work. This is what a workaholic is about. And yeah, I'm attending surgery on Monday. No, of course, just a joke, just a joke. I'm still having surgery on Monday. That's why I can't be here. I think during the time right now, I'm pre-recording this. So I think during the time this plays, I might be listening if I'm awake, but I will be pretty exhausted. So please forgive me. And yeah, that's why I pre-recorded this segment. So yeah, but let's start with the last week's news. Starting with news from Monday, the Ukrainian MOD, the Ministry of Defense, published the results of the latest meeting of the Capability Coalition drones. As part of this coalition, the Netherlands wants to contract RQ-35 Hydron UAVs with 200 million euros in cooperation with Denmark and Germany for delivery to Ukraine. This is a major contract which will result in the production and delivery of over 1,000 reconnaissance drones to Ukraine, and at the same time, it clearly shows, in my opinion, the strong bonds between Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands, as this is not the first a cooperation for Ukraine. For example, Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands are also working together to not produce, but procure and refurbish Leopard 1A5 deliveries to Ukraine. On Wednesday, the German MOD, together with the German Federal Foreign Office, made public that Germany is launching a new initiative under Defense Minister Boris Pistorius and Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, which is called Immediate Action on Air Defense. The initiative aims to provide Ukraine with more air defense systems, ammunition, and other related military assistance in the short term. Therefore, talks are currently being held with NATO partners and third countries about this. On Friday, we got the first results of the German initiative, and I hope Joseph didn't talk about this yet. If he did, then you will have to listen to it twice. I'm very sorry about that. As the first country, the Netherlands has pledged to contribute 150 million euros to the German initiative. The German MOD has also confirmed that they are in talks, in close talks actually, with Denmark about contributing to the initiative. And I personally have a very good feeling about this. Last but not least, Lithuania publicly stated that they are planning to join the German initiative. but don't know yet how they will contribute. Oh, hard English word. Oh my God. An option which they publicly stated were air surveillance radars. Other countries are currently still checking the options, and I personally expect more commitments being made during the next week. On Thursday, during his visit to Ukraine, Germany's Minister of Economic Affairs and Climate Action and Vice Chancellor Robert Habeck opened the new production facility of Quantum Systems in Ukraine. With the new production facility, Quantum Systems wants to be able to produce up to 1,000 drones, including spare parts, per year. And for those who don't know the company, Quantum Systems is a German manufacturer of drones which supplies high-quality vector reconnaissance UAVs to Ukraine on behalf of the German government as military aid. And they are personally also contributing, for example, by donating to Ukraine, as an example, 100 Trinity drones. These are mapping UAVs. So yeah, really, really great. On Friday, Germany's ambassador to Ukraine announced that Ukraine is to receive the 4th IRIS-T SLM air defense system from Germany within this month, so in April, which will be a great help during the Russian attacks on Ukraine's cities. The system was actually expected to be delivered to Ukraine by the end of the winter of last year to this year. And with the upcoming delivery, Germany has delivered, like I just said, a total of 4 IRIS-T SLM systems to Ukraine, with at least one additional system to be delivered later this year. And as a last item for this week, according to Herman Galushenko, I'm very sorry if I butchered this name, the Minister of Energy of Ukraine, Germany offered to open up their decommissioned power plants so Ukrainian specialists can examine them to see if parts can be salvaged and sent to Ukraine for repairs on Ukrainian energy infrastructure, which is also a very, in my opinion, very, very welcome help. And if Joseph didn't talk about this, they are doing the same in Lithuania, just to give them a little bit of credit. Yeah, and that's my segment for this week. Like I said, I'm very sorry that I had to pre-record it, but I didn't want to say I'm attending the stream and then I'm not attending because I'm not feeling that well. And yeah, that's why I went with the safest option with the pre-recorded one. So yeah, have a nice remaining stream. Bye.
Thank you, German aid to Ukraine. Just before we finish, a quick PSA. We have a number of research projects ongoing at the moment, which our wonderful new addition, I try to avoid adjectives, our new contributor Alex just demonstrated to us a short while ago. Please do stay tuned to the Tochnyi broadcasts, but also our website. We have 2 upcoming articles, one on Ukrainian strikes on Russian oil facilities and the priority targets, which can potentially cripple the Russian war economy. And the second one is Daniela's update on FPV drones, which has been a long time in the making. I can attest to that. I'm not going to leave you with any cliched quotes this week. We all recognize the importance of the vote in Congress. Thank you for staying tuned to Tochnyi. Please join us again. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
On behalf of